Yeah. All right, so my name is Jim Meehan. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering at Kentik. We're going to cover in this next segment alerting and anomaly detection. So early on in the product, we had a alerting system that was based on SQL queries over the raw data. And the great thing about that is that it is super flexible. You can write queries to match any type of data. And we built a bunch of templates or examples that are focused on the DDoS use case. So we could ask every 30 seconds, did I see any hosts that had more than 1 gig of traffic going to them? Or did I see any hosts that had more than some volume of SYNs per second? One of the issues with this mechanism is that it's difficult for people to write and tune SQL queries. And the other thing is that it doesn't give us any ability to do profiled detection over time. So we built a whole parallel alerting mechanism that is entirely menu driven with the intent of giving you just as much flexibility for policy creation and detection as we do in the Data Explorer. So, and actually I want to show you this in a different system here. Yep. So you can think of this as a policy creation wizard that uses a lot of the same constructs that we use in the Data Explorer. So I've got a selector here that lets me choose which part of the network I'm going to have this policy look at. And I can add filters on top of that to make it even narrower to look at traffic to some customer or some subnets or some traffic type. And then I can pick which dimensions of the traffic I'm going to profile for this policy. So maybe for DDoS detection use case, I want to profile bits per second per dest IP. And a simple policy might use a static threshold that says, just tell me if any dest IP exceeds 1 gig per second. So this is kind of some of the stuff that we addressed with the older SQL-based alerting. But we've also added on top of that a baselining capability. So now I can say, rather than a static threshold, I want to profile traffic over time to the top 2,000 items along whatever dimension I put in here, or however many you want to track. So let's profile bits per second to the top 2,000 dest IPs and alert me if any dest IP exceeds its historical baseline by more than 100%. And I've also got some capability down below to say, I don't want to know about that the first time it happens. It needs to persist for over some duration for me to be interested in it or care about it. And then on top of the standard baselining mode, we also have kind of a top-end tracking mode called if exist. So maybe I don't care about the discrete traffic volumes of the top n number of dest IPs. I just want to know who's in the top n and alert me if someone that was previously in the top n goes away or someone new enters the top n that wasn't there before. So one use case here is obviously DDoS, and we have some integration for automatic mitigation. I can have a couple of different thresholds associated with this policy, so I might configure a minor threshold that says at 100% of baseline, I just want a notification to some notification destination, email, Slack, PagerDuty, however you want to be notified. But then I also want to add a second threshold, we'll call it a major threshold, at 200% of baseline, or a 10 gig static threshold, or whatever it is. And at the higher threshold, I want to automatically activate some type of mitigation action. One of the options we support is BGP black hole route injection. So we can inject a 32/32 route over the same BGP session that we're using for the BGP analytics portion, so that the traffic can be dropped at the edge, or a customer could choose to have that route propagate to their upstream providers. Then we've also built a direct integration with Radware mitigation hardware, so we can trigger a Radware device to divert traffic, filter out the bad packets, and let the good packets continue on to the intended destination. And we've got the same type of integration upcoming with A10 as well. The interesting thing about selecting any dimension or combination of dimensions to profile here is that this now also becomes a general purpose network traffic anomaly detection platform. So I could profile over time source countries per router or source countries per site and alert me if any source country exceeds its historical baseline or some new source country appears in the top end that wasn't there before. So this is of interest to people who are, say, CDNs that have POPs distributed globally, and they want to know if any POP is serving geos that it shouldn't be serving, or there are traffic shifts in the network.
And you're doing that just because of the geolocation, so
right.
It's really more of a carrier thing. You wouldn't use that as like an anomaly detection in an enterprise. Or could you?
Probably not for enterprise, right? Although it depends. I mean, if you're
I mean, geo wouldn't apply, obviously, but like, could you do other similar things with the tool?
You could, yeah. I mean, any combination of dimensions here is fair game, right? So mix of subnets, mix of ports and protocols, mix of source ASNs is an interesting one. So actually, in this platform, this particular account, we have a policy that profiles source ASNs over time. And on Tuesday, when I was giving a demo, in the active alarms, there was an alert about an unexpected traffic volume from Microsoft's ASN 8075. And lo and behold, it was Patch Tuesday. So there were a ton of machines in that customer's network downloading updates, and we got alerted about unusual volume of traffic from that source.
So you baseline over a period of time, and then there's some kind of a threshold that's set over a baseline?
There is, yeah. So if you look at how the alert policy is defined...
I mean, how do I set a value? It's always arbitrary, right? And then you look at it and go, oh, okay, I broke it, but it's really okay.
Right. We're trying to... There's some amount of customer context that is going to have to come into these policies, right?
Oh, I see, okay.
Because the traffic volumes or the threshold deviation that you care about is going to be different from the threshold deviation.
Well, I mean, a perfect example that I've seen of this is where someone makes a BGP configuration error and accidentally becomes transit.
Yep.
And the only way you'll notice that is if you're looking at your traffic. Or if somebody else calls you and says, hey, did you know you've become transit? So that's a good way.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you could have a policy that profiles the source dest ASN pairs through your network, right? And alerts you on outlier source dest pairs that we haven't seen before. I will mention that we are going to great effort to build out a whole set of out-of-the-box policies. So in the template section here, we've got a bunch of predefined ones that address various interesting use cases that our customers have brought to us. So our intention is that you could copy one of these policies and modify or adjust thresholds rather than having to build all those from scratch. So in the active alarm section here, we've got, here's one of those alerts about unusually high traffic from a source ASN, and then a bunch of other DDoS related ones down below. So here's a DDoS style alert for a dest IP where we were expecting to see 95 megs. We saw 6 gigs instead from 23,000 unique source IPs. And every policy can be linked to a dashboard. So if I click this alarm speedometer icon, it opens up that alarm instance in a dashboard that is automatically filtered to the item that was alerted about. So in this, thank you. So in this dashboard now, we've got the traffic to that dest IP broken out by port, by source country, by, and then down at the bottom, you can see the attack traffic there was that little blip, and it actually made a dent in the overall traffic volume coming into the network. And then the last thing I'll show you here, just from understanding what happened or what is happening, it's pretty easy to put a lot of useful information at your fingertips in the same visualization. So we can look at that source IP. This was from the 10th between 2200 and 2330. So I'll go back into the Data Explorer.
So your DOS detection is based mostly on current thresholds or normalized data rates, and then you're alerting based on outliers? Is that the basis of how the DOS?
There's a few different modes in there. So one mode is kind of static thresholds, and there's a fair number of attacks that you can categorize just based on packet per second rates that are way abnormal, right? Like sore thumb, packet flood types of attacks. Then there's a whole other class of attacks that you can detect by baselining the top N of some dimension in your network. So let's baseline the top N dest IPs or the top N customers or whatever, and alert me if any of those things sees a N% deviation from their historical norm.
So that's great. Is it pre-configured, or does it figure that out on its own, or does someone have to know enough to put that logic in there to detect that?
Yes and no. So we've got those templates are all built out for what I would call the most common use cases, right? So provisioning the system is most often a matter of copying the templates for the scenarios that are relevant for your network. In a majority of cases, those can work out of the box, but sometimes we may need to adjust, what is the % deviation that you care about that is a service affecting incident for your particular network.
And sometimes security people want lots of data because they just ignore all the alerts, no offense to any security people. And operators want it to be very low false positive. So it does depend on the user. But to answer maybe where one of your question might be getting at, you need to define for the system the dimensions to build the baseline across. It's not detecting the dimensions with which to learn. That's the Uber AI, grand challenge. So right now you need to hint a little bit, either yourself or by taking from the library, which dimensions you might think. So it's not going to discover, oh, you have a performance problem, unless you say focus on performance by network, something like that.
But it will learn what the normal values are once you set the dimensions up.
Once you set the dimensions, it'll learn. But,
So on this topic, I don't know how much time we have left, but I guess you're going to get to DDoS anomaly detection. I noticed on your thing here it says detection and mitigation.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see, it's been a lot of analytics and visibility, but nothing, I don't see any capability to take action. So I'm just curious, so is that something we're going to get to shortly?
Yeah, I can go back to that.
Did I miss it?
So we have a capability of configuring mitigation platforms here, and these are interaction with primarily solutions that are provided by other vendors.
Got it.
So
Okay.
one action that we can take directly is inject a route to black hole the destination, which is usually more appropriate on a service provider network or a hosting network where you're going to sacrifice the customer under attack in order to keep the network available for everybody else. But we do have integration running now with Radware, we can trigger them to divert traffic and filter the bad packets and let the good packets go through. And A10 is another vendor that we're working with for a similar type of integration.
Okay.
Did you say BGP flow spec or no?
FlowSpec is something we've talked about internally and is a potential future for us.
we have some people that do. We have some people that do BGP, will RTBH watch a community and then generate flow spec from that according to a policy. But we haven't built it ourselves yet as direct.